Hello.
Good morning. You're bathed in very flattering light, Chris.
Oh,
You are.
the sun is shining in Beaminster, in Loaders at the moment.
You don't know where you live, do you?
I don't know where.
Wherever I am, the sun is shining.
Well, I'm virtually everywhere.
There's some quite nice light coming through my window as well. It's lovely.
Yeah, I've got the curtain half pulled, the sun's shining. I'm not going to talk about the wind.
Well, it's abated a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're in the calm between the two, aren't we?
Yes, as I said on Facebook this morning, we're in the calm before and after the storm.
Yeah.
Well, I have looked on the two of my weather apps today, and we're not actually down here. Can they get much of any of the snow or the forecasting? And it potentially rain, may not have lots of rain, but could have some.
Isn't it the 100-mile-an-hour winds we've got to be worried about?
Possibly could have. Possibly could have, but they only reached 101 mile in one place in Scotland last night.
We've got about 3 big branches off our tree, which Harry's just currently hauling because one's gone over the wall, so he wants it back in our garden so it doesn't damage someone else tonight. And the patio chairs have gone round the corner.
Christmas tree blew over in our garden, but it is in a pot, so that's okay.
Oh, right. We're worried. We've got maybe our neighbour's trampoline might be in our garden tomorrow morning. Well,
no, that's the one that's blocking the train. The
train's in Cardiff.
Oh, the train. Yes, you're right. So trampolines are really difficult. In the year that David broke his leg, that was the year we lost our trampoline in the storm and our fence. So. Yeah.
The first conversation we had about trampolines, dear viewer, was I was reading in the news that a train named after Sir Captain Tom Moore hit a trampoline in Cardiff this morning or yesterday.
Poor thing. Poor train. Poor trampoline.
Poor trampoline. I suspect the trampoline came off worst. I hope nobody was bouncing on the trampoline.
Not currently, not at the time. Poor children who see their Christmas presents fly up in the air and just go off somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. But it's quite good talking about the weather because our reading is aptly stormy.
Aptly stormy. That was a good link, Joe. You think we ought to move on quite quickly to our pause?
Yeah, I've got a busy day. Can't linger. Lots to do. Should we have our pause?
A stormy reading from Luke chapter 8. One day Jesus got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they put out, and while they were sailing, he fell asleep. A gale swept down on the lake, and the boat was filling with water, and they were in danger. They went to him and woke him up, shouting, "Master, Master, we're perishing." And he woke up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves. They ceased, and there was a calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were afraid and amazed, and said to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?"
I like this story.
Does that mean we can blame Jesus for our rough winds, and all the power cuts in the country?
Yeah.
We get asked to pray for the weather a lot, don't we?
Yes. Farmers are notorious. If it's sun shining, they ask me to pray for rain. If it's raining, they ask me to pray for the sun.
I know. Bright.
I've even had one say to you, "Chris, I'm not going to ask you to pray again for the weather."
Well, because it didn't work.
The sun hasn't stopped shining since you prayed for the rain to stop. I need the rain.
Brides always ask as well, don't they?
Yeah.
And pray for it to be sunny on Saturday.
Actually, I even got asked to pray for the weather for yesterday's funeral.
Did you want to say something, Dave?
No, should we not let him?
It's just making faces, like... Yeah. I'm not particularly into praying for the weather, but there we are.
Yeah. Well, you can pray for it this afternoon because I've got to go to Higher Ground Meadow and it's notoriously wet and mucky up there.
It's very wet and mucky. At least it's going to be sunny.
Good.
Last time I was up there, it was, it's one of our local burial grounds, if you're not sure, one of our local kind of wild nature burial grounds. And it's got the most amazing view out over Somerset. But if it's really murky up there, sometimes you can never see the view. These people have come here choosing it as the final resting place for their loved ones for the beautiful view. And then you're standing there in mud and mist.
Yeah, last time I went, somebody fell over because they fell over the earth that had been stacked up and covered with a piece of plastic grass. Luckily, they didn't fall in the hole.
So weather. The way of all victory conversations.
We always complain about weather in this country, don't we? There was lots of welter as well. I understand, in the wet and the rain.
A lot of what? Welter.
That's what Chris said, wasn't it? When he read the thing.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry, I didn't get it.
Did I mispronounce something?
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's just reminded me I mispronounced something.
Oh, well, we'll move on from that. So it's not nice to be picked up on your mistakes. What I find funny about the story is that they are absolutely sure Jesus needs to be woken up. So, master, we're perishing. And then when he sorts out the problem, they're like, oh, how can you do that? And you think, well, hang on. A minute ago, you were wanting him to wake up because you were sure you were going to die. And then when he sorts it out, you're a bit like, oh.
I just think, how on earth can you sleep in a storm that's bad?
Oh, I could easily.
Oh, right.
Well, maybe not now. Actually, not now I've had children. I wake up at the slightest thing. But pre-children, I could have slept through a storm, I think. No problem.
And the answer to your question is, Chris, is because he was Jesus.
Was he really sleeping then? Or was he just resting his eyes?
That's a thing I've often thought. Was he just pretending and putting him along,
Yeah, I'm going to see how long it lasts before you disturb me.
Well, yeah, or like dads do when you're watching when they sit in the chair after lunch, switch the telly on, watch what they want to watch, promptly fall asleep, and then you try and just surreptitiously turn the channel over. This is my childhood I'm talking about. And as you turn the channel, the eye would go and you go, I was watching that.
I thought for a moment then poor Harry.
I don't know.
I thought for a moment that poor Harry was being got at. This can't happen.
This was my dad. This is my dad in my childhood. He would sit down on a Saturday afternoon after lunch and put whatever sport was on, promptly fall asleep with snoring. And we'd be like, we could turn it over and it might be better on the other side.
Yeah,
and as soon as you tried...
I just wonder, getting back to the story, whether Jesus was snoring, because we don't know, it doesn't tell us. Could have been snoring. He could have done that pretend snoring to make you feel that he was asleep in the boat. So the disciples were really conned, couldn't they? Yeah.
Oh, dear. But yeah, there's definitely fake snoring from the Son of God. I'm not sure that that's true.
True.
I just... Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, but you like stories about Jesus and water and boats, don't you?
I do. I had reception from St Mary's come to visit me in church this week, and they were talking about for their RE. They were talking about places of peace and calm, and they were looking at a church and why that might be a place of peace. And so I took them to the window in St Mary's, Beaminster, which is not exactly this story. It's Jesus walking on the water, but it was enough for us to talk about. The waves being still and there being peace and Jesus having that control. But they were really struck by, they were very good. I mean, given they were all 4 and 5, they were very struck about that peace that you can find in a church when you're just still, and I lit the candles and we all sat in silence, and that sense of peace. So, but they were very funny because every time I took them round to look at different things, I said, oh, what can you see in the window? And one of them went, oh, it's baby Jesus. And it was the nativity window. And then we went to the war memorial. And I said, oh, what can you see here? And same child goes, baby Jesus. I'm like, no, poppies, names. I think she was just going to go for baby Jesus for every answer.
Well, it is the most common answer in any school assembly, isn't it?
Jesus or Moses.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway,
But
back to the story.
what is getting back to the story at hand? You know, the stilling of the storm. What do we think that the chief for the viewer who's looking for theological inspiration from us today? Because they do, I'm told. What do we think that the chief point of this wonderful story is? Are we looking at the disciples, as was suggested earlier, or putting in some kind of desperate prayer? Is it faith-based at all?
God, it is beginning to sound like a school assembly now.
I'm just asking. I mean, I'm just trying to give I had a wonderful letter from one of our viewers, Mr. Kennard, actually thanking us for the inspirational input that we give him each. I don't think talking about children looking at a window is going to give him much. So I'm trying to get someone's back here. You know, if it's a faith-based story, desperate prayer, all of
the above. It's all of the above, isn't it? It's about having trust in Jesus and then not being surprised when he delivers. And it's about the revelation of him being so powerful that he can control the elements, which is, they were experienced fishermen. They will have realised that humans have no control over the elements. So that's the astoundingness of this story, the revelation of Jesus's power, the fact that we should trust him, the fact that he will keep us from harm, and that it all boils down to faith, and they didn't have enough.
So fear and doubt. We've
lost you, David. The shining of the sun is so powerful that you now look like you've disappeared into a haze. It's like the Transfiguration next week.
I'll turn the
Ask better.
But then you've got the lampshade, which Harry doesn't like, so I have to be very careful.
Oh, well, I'm not quite sure if it was better with...
It's really disintegrating today. It's we're nowhere near faith today.
No, but I agree with you, Joe. Going back to, I think we've got Jesus quite deliberately demonstrates his power over the wind. It's part of his demonstration of his deity, and I think Jesus was quite deliberate. I mean, he would have known the storm was coming. Quite why the experienced fishermen didn't, I'm not sure.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that.
They would have known the weather. But he went out.
They were asleep, perhaps they didn't notice.
And he almost, an element of brinkmanship. Wait till the storm gets so bad. Because if they said, right, let's go out, and they said the storm's coming, and Jesus said, don't worry, I'm in charge of the storm. It will stay calm. The storm will miss us.
Yeah, they wouldn't have been.
Don't have the story that makes the demonstration that Jesus Christ has the power over the wind and the waves.
Yeah.
That's my 2 pennies worth.
No, I think you're right. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at it up in the context of what's been going on. In fact, it just comes after the parable of the sower, actually, which isn't particularly linked to my mind. But yeah, I think it's just that. What's really struck me about Luke's gospel is we've been reading bits of it in the beginning of Epiphany, beyond Epiphany, so just now, that there's so many people around all the time. I think I might have talked about that last week. When the first disciples are called, there's a massive crowd on the beach, and when he's preaching to the people, there's just loads and loads and loads of people, and this revelation is of who Jesus's identity is, begins right from the off of who he is. And I just think that the disciples are on this massive journey of learning themselves, aren't they? There's something so compelling about Jesus that they're willing to follow him. But every time he teaches and heals and does a miracle, it's the crowds learning about him, but the disciples are deepening their faith too. And so it's just another step on the revelation of who Jesus is. To show his divinity is important, I think, for the disciples to understand his power. And the same for us as disciples. We sometimes I think we probably, and I think I definitely do this sometimes. We try to make Jesus too comfy, too familiar. And we talk a lot about and he says, you are my friends and you are my brothers and sisters. And we have this really cozy kind of intimacy with Jesus, which is fabulous. But this is a completely different side of him, isn't it? This isn't cozy intimacy. This is creator of the world in control of the elements, which is quite astounding. And it's, we need to remind ourselves that Jesus isn't just our friend. He is our friend, but he's more than just our intimate companion. He is powerful and mighty and awesome. And here ends the sermon.
I was going to put my hand up like a diocesan synod to see if I could speak, but you're quite right. You see, I've always looked at these stories in one way, that if you read through, particularly through the Old Testament, the weather is always an indicator of kind of evil, isn't it? You know, the storm comes and it's bad and whatever. And for me, this story has always been, again, looking at that you've got this bad storm, it's evil, it's chaos, and here's Jesus able to defeat evil with good. And part of my understanding has always come out of that. And the disciples, well, are they asking out of desperation because they're just frightened, hoping that whatever? Because what were they actually doing themselves other than waking Jesus up? What kind of safety precautions were they taking for themselves, or what were they doing? And it's come out of desperation. And do they really believe Jesus can do anything? Well, they get to the point where they're so desperate they just hope he can. And it's this kind of, you know, is it really faith-based or whatever? But ultimately, good will overcome what is kind of biblical understanding about evil from weather and storm will be defeated.
But I was thinking if you just put Jesus back to the disciples on the human level, you know, if you're in a boat in a storm and it's like a sailing boat, somebody's trying to tie up the sails, hold the rudder, move all the things around, they might have just ran out of hands and waking Jesus up to say, come and help us. You hold the rudder while we're trying to sort the sail out to try and guide us back to shore.
Yeah.
And Jesus wakes up and says, well, actually, I'm not just going to hold the rudder. I'm going to calm the wind and the waves for you. Yeah. You know, as a different level of faith. And then I was also thinking, while Joe was talking, about what happened when they got back to shore. You've got all the disciples in the boat saying, wow, this is brilliant. We were out on the sea. Jesus stood up and shouted at the wind and the waves, and they obeyed him. How awesome is this Jesus? They says, yeah, right. The storm was just passing anyway. I mean, they're so easy today just to talk away a miracle, and you can just imagine, you know, within a couple of hours or a couple of days, people will have forgotten the ferocity of the storm and just said, well, or Jesus just knew that the storm was about to end anyway. We like to explain.
Yeah, we like to explain it away. Well, there's also, I think I have talked about this before on Rev Chat. There's an amazing community of musicians called the Porter's Gate, and they wrote some songs in lockdown based on lament. And they wrote this fabulous song called Jesus, When You're Going to Wake Up. I'll link it, get Harry to link it to the thing. But that's taking the other view of actually, you know, in this situation, in this story that we hear in Luke's gospel, he woke up and sorted out the situation. But how many times in our lives do we feel in a storm, either metaphorically or literally, and we're crying out to Jesus to change things, and actually it feels like he doesn't, or it feels like he's not there, or he feels like he's not woken up, and that actually the storm, we have to ride the storm out on our own. And I think that can feel quite hard work, because not every storm of our lives ends by being calm immediately like this one did. And I would take from this story that, you know, we believe Jesus is with us in storms, and there will always be calm at the other side of a storm, however long it goes on for and however traumatic it is. But it doesn't always miraculously get stopped mid-storm, does it? Not everything gets miraculously sorted out by the presence of Jesus. And so holding that intention in this story is quite interesting too, about saying, well, you know, what about the times when we felt like we were alone, or we felt like the storm never passed, or the storm didn't get sorted out? And it's trying to hold those two experiences in tension, isn't it?
It is. And I think, like I said, a lot to me, people think that Christianity is, you know, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. What's your favourite thing that brings happiness? And I said, well, actually, I don't know that Christianity is about the goal of happiness. There's a deep joy in our hearts, but actually Christianity is about dealing with life. You know, we're dealing, because we all have storms in life. At times, we all have these problems. We don't just go through and pray and then everything's all right and we're living a lovely life. But actually, having Jesus there to call on in the storm. Yes, sometimes he calms the storm, but sometimes he just makes the storm not quite so bad that your boat doesn't sink.
Mm.
And you end up just surviving. And many people feel like that. And how we differentiate between them all, I don't know. But God is there. God is with us. And God helps us through those storms and makes sure the waves don't get too big.
I think that's the key to it, Chris, in a way, because just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that life is going to be easy.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in the Bible does it say theology that everything will be hunky dory and great and simple. But you just have to trust that God is there with you and in it, and you're not alone. Or however much you may feel you are, that He's there with you and walking alongside you. But that's not always easy to feel, as Joe says quite rightly. When you're in the middle of a battle of life or something going on. And that's where faith, I suspect, comes in some way.
It does. Yeah, we trust, don't we? We trust that He is with us. And, even if it doesn't feel like it, that is my faith, that God is always with us.
And that's what I often say at funerals about, whatever faith is trusting and believing in something we have no ultimate proof over, but we believe to be true and honest. And I think that's partly it. So yes. Storms of life and Storm Eunice is about to strike the country. Let's perhaps pray and get people to pray for safety of those who are going to be in the eye of the storm later tonight or tomorrow morning.
We got there in the end, which could be the motto for Rev Chat. We got there in the end.
Got there in the end.
Bless you. Lovely to journey through the storm with you two this morning. And I hope that you have peaceful nights, everyone who's watching this before the storm. And if it's after the storm, I hope you've been all right clearing up the debris. You can find us on all our social media outlets, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, on our websites, the Agaden and Colmers Benefice or Beaminster Team Churches. And we'll see you again next week. Oh, I won't. I'm on holiday. It's half term.
You are?
It'll just be the lads next week.
Yay!
Woohoo! There you go.
I've still got a few more days to work with her before I start cheering, so you just be careful.
Joe, have a lovely break.
I will. Thank you very much. We'll see you all very soon.
You deserve it. All good to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.